Hey there, welcome to the Breakthrough Creative. I am your host, John McDavitt, and this is the place where we talk about the business of art and the art of business. My guest today is Craig Burgess. He is a partner in a creative design firm, he is a creative director, and he is a full stack creative. I just love that title, full stack creative. It is as cool a term as it sounds, and you're going to hear him describe that and how he got to where he got in just a little bit. But first, I was going to ask you if you would please, if you're listening on the podcast, would you please subscribe to the Breakthrough Creative there and leave us a review and a rating? And if you are watching on YouTube, would you please hit the red subscribe button? And that helps with the algorithms. It helps to bring awareness to the show. And if there is an artist in your life, a creative in your life that you think these episodes will benefit, would you please turn them on to the show? I greatly appreciate that. And now I want to introduce you to Craig Burgess. So Craig, tell me what it is that you do.
This is always the hardest question to answer when anybody asks me this on a podcast. What do you do? So formally, I'm creative director at a company called Genius Division, which is a digital and branding agency. So I'm a designer in the most formal, simplest way to understand it. I'm a graphic designer. I've done that for 15 years. But then I kind of like to think, I really like this term full stack creator. So this idea of a full stack creator is that I'm a creative at heart. I do everything. So I make podcasts like the one we're recording now. I make YouTube videos. I write books. I'm basically just anything that's creative. I turn my hand to it and have fun with it. So I'm quite polymathic, I guess, when it comes to being a creative. But yeah, formally, I'm a graphic designer. Complex answer, simple, simple solution.
Yeah, I really like the answer though. I really like full stack creator. Do you read any Scott Adams?
No, no,
So
I haven't.
he's the Dilbert guy,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I guess now he's kind of rebranded himself as he's a liberal politically, but he seems to have caught the ear of mostly a conservative audience.
Mm.
But he's written several books, and one of them is how how to fail big and still succeed.
Yeah,
And one of I guess he was the gentleman who coined the phrase talent stacker, and that's what I thought of when you said full stack creator. And how did how did that even come to be a part of your paradigm, the whole full stack creator thing? Was it something that just happened, or was it something you kind of planned, or
I think so I've never been classically creative in terms of I can't draw. I'm rubbish at music. I'm rubbish at music industry in industry instruments. Um, I'm rubbish at singing. All these kind of classic things that you think of as creative. I'm not good at, and I ended up kind of falling into being a designer, I guess, almost accidentally. And then I realized quickly that that was kind of my true calling. That I absolutely loved it. That I wanted to spend my entire life doing this. But then I guess I I'm also someone who's quite impatient and I love doing lots of things. I'm very prolific across lots of different industries and styles and all this kind of thing. And designer never really contained me. It never satisfied me enough. I always wanted to do other stuff. So a thing I've done for nearly 13 years now, probably 14, is every year when I want to learn something new, I do something every day for 365 days. So that's some kind of creative act every day for 365 days. And that started in my first year as a designer when I wanted to learn how to illustrate, use Adobe Illustrator to be specific, to make vector graphics. And then over the years, that's kind of gone in other weird directions. So another one of them was podcasting. So I decided I wanted to learn how to make a podcast. I'm going to record, publish, and produce a podcast every day for 365 days. And that was like really left field. I'd never done a podcast before, but I wanted to learn how to do it. So over these years, I have just stacked these things on top of each other. So every time I come around to doing another thing like Twitter, so Twitter was the latest one last February. I said I'm going to write 10 tweets every day on Twitter for 365 days. So now I got to that point. I've got the design skills, the podcasting skills, the video stuff, which was another thing I did, make a video every day for, that was about 50 days or something like that, not 365. So I got to Twitter and I started throwing all these skills in different ways. Sometimes I'd make a video, sometimes a podcast, sometimes a visual, which is another thing, you know, like little doodles I make on Twitter sometimes. I started throwing all these in, and then it wasn't me who came up with the full stack creator thing. There's actually a term in development. So when you're a programmer or an engineer, the term is full stack developer. So what that means is that you know lots of different aspects of programming languages, and you can essentially make a full app by yourself. That's what a full stack developer is. And it was actually Dickie Bush who quoted me on Twitter and said, you know, Craig is a full stack creator. And I thought that's perfect. That explains it perfectly. I kind of have a bit of a hang up saying it out loud that I'm a full stack creator because it sounds a little bit, I don't know, a little bit weird or a little bit twee or a little bit cheesy. So I don't tend to say it that much. But yeah, I think it perfectly sums up the kind of thing that I do.
Yeah. That, you know, I would expect if you approached it with humility, that would be something that would perk up the ears of a client or a potential client, full stack creator.
Yeah, I've so in terms of my career as a designer, I turn my hand to all sorts of stuff. I'm just right now working on a branding project for a college in the UK, and I've done all the logos, all the design, the formal design. I've just done some bus advertisements for them today. They want help with some video stuff and some podcast stuff. So yeah, it's appealing. On one end, it's appealing to some clients, but some other people, this is the biggest hang up with saying that you are a full stack creator. Some of the people think that you can't possibly be good at all those things. You know, jack of all trades, master of none, that old thing. And it takes a lot of convincing to make people realize that you are actually good at these things. You are actually a professional at these things. So yeah, for some clients, it's good. For clients that have got potentially smaller, tighter budgets and they're willing to trust you, it's brilliant. For some others, not so much. They think they need a full team to do something that you can actually do yourself.
Yeah. That's it's interesting just when I think about the clients I've gone in to see, and I don't know that I didn't have that term in my back pocket at the time. I didn't have full stack creator, but I would often, knowing full well, knowing almost full well what they needed by appearance, and I'd be in a meeting and I would often say two phrases to them. I would say, I'm a one-stop shop for what you need. Like I can manage all these different elements and just express what I did and be able to show them the work. And then the other thing that I'd say that actually might come across as a bit cocky was, I'm here to make your nightmares go away. I want to make your nightmares go away because I'll manage the stuff and I might be ahead of you guys when I get the work. Like I'll get the work, I'll do it, and I might be ahead of your schedule and I'll be sharing it with you because I want to show you what I'm working on along the way. But you know, most people were happy with that. And then of course you've got to deliver, right? or there's issues. But yeah, I like full stack creator. I've written it down. That's why I'm not looking up at the screen. I'm taking some notes over here. So okay, I've gotten ahead of everything. I told you that I was going to ask you how you got to here from there. So you shared that, you know, you weren't good in instruments, you weren't good at drawing. There were a lot of things you weren't good at, and when I hear that from somebody who has done as much as you have done, I often think back to that younger person, and I think a lot of times people give up before they even start because they're defeated. They think, well, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do the other thing, so I'm just not good at anything.
Mm.
And you and I both know that that's not true. If somebody starts to um, put themselves to work at learning something. So where did you start, and what gave you the impetus to think you could even do this? What gave you the gall to think that you could get into something creative without being creative?
Well, so where I am right now, this very day that we're recording this, I make YouTube videos, I podcast, I make regular visuals. I'm a designer. I basically a one-stop shop, like you said, just a
Yep.
creative quote unquote powerhouse or whatever you want to say. And previous to this, so 15 years ago, I'm 33 now. So 15 years ago, when I was 18, I was about to become a police officer. I was about to become a cop. That was when you say cop in your accent, it sounds way cooler than when I say cop, by the
A
way.
copper.
Yeah, copper. Yeah. Yeah. I was about to become a cop, and that was the thing I always wanted to do throughout my entire life. So from being about 5 years old or something, I wanted to be a police officer. Um, I don't know why. It was just a lifelong ambition. And I got to 18 years old, and I couldn't be a cop until I was 18.5. In the UK, there's this weird thing. You've got to be half a year older than 18 before you're entrusted with the responsibilities of being a policeman. So I kind of had to hang around for 6 months. So I was pretty good at school. I got good grades and things like that. So instead of just doing nothing for 6 months, I decided to do a university course, and the university course was a HND in interactive media. And what that really meant was learning about how to make websites, how to do design, typography, all this kind of stuff. And since I'd been 15, I'd messed around with websites. I didn't consider it creative. I was a geek. I enjoyed messing with websites. So this appealed to me. So I went on the course, and then within a couple of weeks, I quickly realized, and the tutor was amazing. I'm still in touch with Steve now, one of the biggest influences on my life. Um, I quickly realized the course wasn't really about the skills as such. He taught the skills, he taught the technical skills, but it was more about the design and the creativity side of it. And I discovered this whole side of me that I never knew existed, basically. I I loved it. I was open. My eyes were open to design for the first time ever, and I was reading. In the UK, we had a magazine called Creative Review, which was always a Square magazine, really expensive but really cool, full of the best design, art, and all that kind of thing in the UK and the world. And I was reading all this stuff, learning all this stuff for the first time when I was 18 years old. Creativity, basically, in lots of different mediums. But I really fell in love with design, the idea of, I guess, to some extent, formalized design, professionalized creativity, working with clients and that kind of thing. So I fell in love with it so much so that within, I think it was 8 months or something, I was on the course. When I learn something new, I get obsessed with it. I learn everything about it, and I learn things very quickly like that. Within 8 months, I got my first job as a designer. So my first professional job as a designer, my first professional job ever. And I was crap. I was a really bad designer, but I was, I had my first job. I had the first rung on the ladder, and I realized then this is the thing I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I wanted to be a designer, and then it kind of just spiraled from there. Really, the cop thing was gone. I ended up to the person I live with now. She's a copper, so I kind of by proxy end up experiencing it anyway. And then I've just done that for the last 15 years, and pretty much, I won't say loved every second of it, but loved the vast majority of it to want to keep doing it for 15 years. So I was a designer for other people for 5 years, always wanted to run my own agency. I got the opportunity to do it after a couple of years, and then we've just celebrated our 10th year in business as a design agency. So that's kind of the journey as quickly as possible. So from cop to designer, and now that's what I am. Now I'd probably call myself more a creative rather than a designer. The design is the kind of formal, the way I formalize my creativity a lot of the time. But I'd probably call myself more of a creative. What's really interesting, though, quick point to end on, is that when I became a designer, I started reflecting on some of my past experiences in my life before I actually, I was 18. Previous to that, where did it all come from? And I started thinking back. I used to love wrestling when I was a kid. I used to watch then WWF. Now it's crap and it's WWE. But back then it was WWF. And I used to draw the WWF logo over and over. And I used to draw quite a few logos actually over and over. And I used to love felt tip pens, and I used to love permanent markers, Sharpies, that kind of thing. There was something about them. I loved drawing with them. I couldn't draw, but I loved the experience and the feeling of drawing with one. And then another thing as well, I used to love music, and I used to always buy CDs and open up the case and look at all the artwork in the CD sleeve and just enjoy it. And I didn't know it was a job, but I enjoyed, I don't know, looking at the things that were in there. And then the other final thing is for fun. I don't know why I did this. This was a really weird thing I used to do as a kid. For fun, I used to use Microsoft Publisher, and I used to make Christmas cards in Microsoft Publisher when I was about 10 or 11 or 12 or something like that. I didn't know it was a job, that somebody could do this as a job, but I did it for fun. So there was actually lots of, little points where I was being creative, but I never recognized it as a kid because I come from, a small town in Yorkshire. People aren't designers usually from this kind of place. You get a job and you just work that job for the rest of your life. So I was never surrounded by, although my parents were amazing, I wasn't surrounded by that. You know what I mean? So I didn't know anybody who was creative. I didn't know anybody who had that ambition. So I was always assumed that the correct career would be a police officer. And it was only by accident that I stumbled into creativity. And then my parents letting me do whatever I want it turned into a fruitful career.
So your parents were they didn't just let you do whatever you wanted. It sounds like they were supportive as well.
Yeah, absolutely. When I say whatever I want, I mean, they never pushed me into a particular career. They knew I was sensible and I would have picked something anyway, but they let me do what I wanted. When I said I don't want to be a police officer, I want to be a designer, well, I proved it to them that it could be a job before they even had a chance to say anything. I had a job within 8 months, so they couldn't say anything about it.
So yeah, there's a fearlessness to you. Does that resonate when I say that? There's a fearlessness to you?
Yeah, I've certainly got no shame. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that fearlessness was always a part of your personality, or do you think that it was amplified by your parents trusting in you and encouraging you?
I wouldn't say they're not like overly encouraging to the point where they let me do whatever I want or whatever. They were just very trusting that I would find the way that I
Hmm.
wanted to find. They never said, Craig, you're going to be a doctor, or Craig, you've got to be a police officer, or that kind of thing. Craig, you've got to go to
Yeah.
university. So it was a big part of my life, definitely, that they just let me get on with it. But one thing that they've always done is encourage my curiosity. And I think that's where it really came from. I was one of those annoying kids asking what traffic lights meant at 6 years old. And why is that one green? It just is. Why is that one orange? It just is. Why is that one red? It just is. But they actually tried to find the answers, most of the time, despite me being really annoying. I've always had that curiosity bent, and that's never gone. So I've always had that feeling, and I think most creatives feel like this, that you want to know why a thing's the way it is, no matter what it is. And you look at a thing and go, well, I could make that. So you go try and do it. That kind of curiosity, I don't know whether it's fearlessness as such, but it's a curiosity to want to try and do it myself. And just, I guess an element of it's fearlessness, but it's just the fact that I'm not bothered about looking rubbish, and I'll
Yeah.
try it.
Yeah, maybe that's more of it, right? You're not you're not worried about, well, I don't want, that's probably not the way to say it, and I shouldn't put words in your mouth, so you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but there's a um you're not afraid to fall on your butt, right? It's like, oh, well, big deal, I'll get back up.
Yeah, and to use a British phrase, and I don't know whether you allow swearing on this or not, so you might have to bleep this out. But I'm not afraid to look like a wanker. So uh, I do stuff purely for the fun of it.
Yeah,
So it isn't really that I look at something and see it as being scary or whatever. It's just that I want to try it, so I'll do it. And yes, sometimes it might be a scary thing. Although all we're talking about is pixels here most of the time. It's not really that scary as such. I'm not going to war or anything, but it's the desire to do the thing really that supersedes the fact that it might be scary.
yeah,
Particularly when I started doing the podcasting thing, that was probably the most scary thing I did, because if you would have heard my accent a couple of years ago, it was much harder to understand than this. And it was podcasting that really drove me to, better communicate and better to enunciate my vowels and phrases and things like that. The first episode is still online somewhere, and the difference is insane how my voice sounds. So, and it took a lot of guts to put that up for me, because nobody likes hearing their own voice. And my mates took the piss out of me for making a podcast. And so there's that kind of maybe social fear, but you get over that pretty quickly when you've made a fool of yourself many times in public.
yeah. Well, there's a strange thing to get past, maybe with, like you said, your mates, right? Your friends, whomever is kind of close to you, and they know who you were. And
Yeah.
and when you step into being a designer or whatever it is that you're pursuing, you're not that it's your identity, but you're kind of becoming someone else, right? And a lot of
Mhm.
people, I mean, even if they're just in your mind saying it, but I still think there's some people out there like, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are doing a podcast? Who's going to listen to that? And I had an argument with that guy living in my head for quite a while when I started my show. I was like, oh, who's going to listen to this? Just do it. Just do it. Just like, it's something I'm supposed to do. And, if you can get past that, I actually think that that's the barrier that holds most people back.
I completely agree. It is the identity thing, and because I am so far removed from the identity of what somebody in Barnsley. I still live in Barnsley now. I'm so far removed from the identity of what somebody from Barnsley should be that you get to the point where you become kind of detached from that. But the initial part of detaching from that small town mindset, that worrying about what your local friends or your family or your friends are going to say, even though they're not going to listen to it or see it, that initial thing is very sticky. You
Yeah.
keep getting pulled back over and over. It's rubber almost at that point. But after a series of making a few things and putting them online, you start to realize that they won't listen to it, or they might watch it and laugh at you or whatever. But after a time, they don't care. And what happened with me is that you start to veer off a little bit. You start to lose connection to them a little bit, and you start making new friends that appreciate you for what you are in that moment. Now, uh, I can still go away and have a laugh with those friends, and I still do. Um, but they understand and appreciate you for what you really are in that moment, and I think that's an important point as well, to say that what you are in that moment, because right now I'm changing every day, and we all are. Um, I think that's the worst thing we can do: keep ourselves attached to a thing or a place or a person or whatever it ends up being, because it doesn't let you grow into the thing that you really want to be or try or whatever. But yeah, I agree. I think identity is really important, and it's hard. It's hard to break. It's hard to break.
It really is. I think when I stepped into the artist role in my life when I was around 18, and uh, found myself making a living from from airbrushing t-shirts, at some point I was like, I wasn't really that good. I still can't believe people were paying me to airbrush t-shirts for them. But when I look back, you know, I thought I was better than what I was, which was important, I think, because you've I don't know that I've got this thought out all the way. I'm just processing it. I think I thought I was better than I was, and that was encouraging,
Hmm.
right? And I don't mean I wasn't full of myself. I was confident, I guess is what I had, was confidence. And and then at some point through the repetition, I became as good as I thought I was before. And I was like, wow, I'm I was really very good. And it started to give me a better eye for things. But I think where I really struggled for some time was in the business aspect of my career early on, because I didn't have the experience or the savvy or the mentors to walk me through the business aspects of my craft and my business. How did you handle that transition, I suppose?
Yeah, that was tough because when we started Genius Division as a design agency, I would have been late 21 or 22, really young. So back then, it was something that frustrated me a lot was I couldn't get respect from either clients or senior business people who'd been doing it for a long time and think, just a 21-year-old kid, what does he know? And we were both young. I was 21 or 22, and James at the time would have been 22 or 23. So we were both really young. So that was hard. But that really started to shift when through repetition. So when we'd been around for 5 years or so, people were a bit like, oh, they're still here. They actually, maybe they might know what they're doing. And what we started to see at that point is some people who wouldn't have trusted us in our first year had come back around and thought, oh, well, they're still here after 5 years. Maybe we'll give them a try now. And then when we got to 10 years, well, now people go, wow, well, they've been here 10 years in an industry that's hard to stay around for a long time. Through it was a recession when we first set up, through coronavirus now, through lots of all the other world events that have gone on. And we're still here and we're still stuck around. Now people go, well, yeah, now we should pay attention. So really the only thing that we could do, because we didn't know what we were doing in the first year. uh, we kind of know what we're doing now, I guess. But really the only thing we could do is just keep going, and the experience of working with lots of clients gives you more confidence. And I think there's kind of two levels of it. There's one, the level of working with clients and getting more confidence in working with clients. But then I think also there's this internal confidence that you've got to get in yourself that only comes from doing lots and lots of work. So the repetitions again. And then once you marry those two together, so you've got a confidence of working with a client, but a confidence in your own skill that is based on data and previous experience, not just the confidence that you mentioned before, not kind of like a knowing that you've got confidence, just this is experience, you've got it. Then you're on another level, I think. And now that's kind of where I'm at in my career, and everybody else is at, that you've actually got confidence when you're dealing with people, and people notice that, because then there's you don't say yes to everything. You often say no. You question things and push back on things, and I think it is quite magical when you get to that point. In lots of ways, as a jobbing designer, I guess I'd put it. I only feel now, with 15 years experience, that I kind of know what I'm doing. I can handle clients and projects and everything, and the psychology of it all, and the actual, just the whole swirling bit of everything. The actual creativity, I was probably good enough at that after maybe 4 or 5 years, but it's took another 10 years to get the rest of it. So we kind of just handled it by doing it, because it was just it's just also also new and so weird, isn't it? And even when I talk to other design agencies or other creative people now, the business stuff is different for everybody as well. Uh, Everybody's slightly different in the way that they handle it. So it's tough. I don't think there's not a rule book you can follow, certainly.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of things you can read, and I'm always wary when I see anything marketed as, this is the book and this is the process and this is the way to charge, and if it piques my interest, I'll have a look and I'll see what I can glean from it. But you're right, there's so many moving pieces, and businesses are all different and creatives are different, and there's different services that we offer and solutions that it's almost like you're on, it's the 1700s and you're setting out for the new world, in your ship, and you can't radio anybody when you're out in the middle of the ocean in a storm. You're making it happen as best you can, and hopefully you won't get dashed to pieces by the rocks or the storm or whatever. But and I'm being very dramatic, right, to make a point. But I don't know how you felt, but I always wanted to have this exciting life, and the creative life has always felt very exciting to me because it's not the same thing every day. And then having my own business, I'm able to, like, you can't control everything, and you can barely control anything, and yet there just feels to be more freedom in it. I don't know
Yeah,
how that strikes you.
yeah. It is freeing, and it's very nice to have the opportunity to use your creativity for money. People actually pay you for those skills. It's actually quite nice to do that. You can't pretend it's not. My first ever job was putting bottles of pop on a shelf in a supermarket. So it's a world apart from that. And I do think the thing that it's different every time, not just not just every day, but every job or everything. No two design jobs are the same. No two creative jobs are the same. That's all quite exciting. But I think what's exciting about it as well is kind of the pressure to some extent. So even though at this point I've probably made, I don't know, hundreds of brands or logos and designed hundreds of websites and all this kind of thing, still when you get a client for the first time, it's a brand new client, new industry, whatever, the pressure is on you to produce something that's never been seen before. And that's a big pressure. You pull it out your ass from somewhere. That isn't that you can't systemize that process. You get better at it over time, but that process is still never systemized. So there's still a bit of pressure to suddenly pull up the carpet and find something magical underneath it, and you don't always get that. You don't always get that good thing. But yeah, there's still something about that process that even though when you've been doing it 15 years, it doesn't. I mean, it gets easier in some ways, but it doesn't get easier in other ways as well. So it is like you're doing a fresh job every time, and obviously that's got its downsides as well as its positives, because you are always starting from zero when you take on a new job. It isn't selling a book or whatever where you write it once and you sell it many times. You are making purely original creative work every time, and that comes with its challenges as well. But yeah, it's very invigorating. I think about all different weird jobs I've done where I've been taking photographs of £25,000 jewelry in a cellar in uh, middle of a city somewhere. And the reason we had to do it in a cramped cellar is because they didn't have the insurance to take out this ridiculously expensive jewelry. And I'm just a kid from Barnsley handling this, potentially millions of pounds of jewelry. And they're going, oh, don't worry if you drop it because it's sturdy, because it's really expensive jewelry. And I'm crapping myself holding this jewelry in my hand. And then everything from that to designing logos for, well, colleges, like I said, and horror conventions. And yeah, no 2 days is the same. That's what's quite fun about it. I don't think I'll ever get bored of that.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Tell me about your relationship with your partner. How do you guys make it work? Because partnerships can be really challenging. I mean, every partnership has its challenges. It's just by nature, it's self-evident. But you guys, how long are you guys going on now in the business?
10 years.
10 years. So, I mean, you got a decade together. How do you balance each other out? How do you make it go?
Yeah, well, so there's 5 of us in total in the agency. There's now 3 partners. So there was 2 when we started. There's now 3. Um, so the other guy that I started it with, he's more of the managing director. He handles all the finances and the admin and things like that. I'm the apparently creative one, and then the other one is technical, so technical director, creative director, and managing director. So we've all got quite distinctive roles. One of them manages the technical, one of them manages the admin, one of them manages the creative. So it's fairly easy for us to manage that, and we've always kind of had the same kind of drivers towards the same kind of things, and we're quite good friends as well, and none of us want the earth from things. None of us are hugely ambitious in terms of wanting to build a massive agency, because whether we'll get to talk about this or not, I don't think you can build a massive agency and make money from it. Um, so yeah, we all kind of think the same, and I think that's probably why we've managed to stay together. We all think the same. We don't demand too much of each other, and we all want to drive in the same direction. If any of us wanted to go in a different direction, then maybe it would have been tougher. I do know, I do know friends who had other agencies where they all started wanting different things from it. Maybe one wanted more money, maybe one wanted to work less, or maybe one wanted to move to New York or whatever. Then it gets hard when everybody's pulling in different directions. But I'm really lucky that, touch wood, so far we're not at that stage, and we've found a balancing act where we can work just enough, where we're not working ourselves to death, but we work enough to make enough money, and then we've still got enough time to either work on side projects or just have fun,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, that's really good. It seems like there's enough business and there's enough excitement going on in that regard, and then you're able to have a life.
Yeah, we this year we actually put our working hours down to 32 hours a week. So we've been saying for a long time we want to do a 4-day work week, a formal 4-day work week. Um, and then we put it down to 32 hours and just let people decide how they want to split it. So it can be 4 days if you want, it could be 3 days if you want. Um, yeah, just less hours really, because as you get a bit older, we're all in our 30s now, we realize that working more doesn't, you don't get more done. Um, it's funny, I used to work, like 12, 13, 14-hour days, which is often a thing that designers do, but you don't get more done. Now I'm doing the same. Sometimes I might spend 2 or 3 hours designing something. I might be working for 5 or 6 hours, but I rarely spend longer than that. And I still get the same done versus those hours where I used to spend 14 hours. So yeah, I don't feel like I need to work more.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds very wise from a guy who just turned 50. Um, Life and time are precious, and
Mm.
the more you have that isn't spent working, although work can be very, very beneficial and enjoyable, and everything that goes with it. um, it's nice to go out and breathe and walk and lift weights or hang out with your kid or hang out with your significant other. Yeah, yeah. When did you start lifting weights?
It was about 6 or 7 years ago now.
Yeah,
It's hard to remember. Basically, on Facebook, if you went onto my Facebook profile, the majority of the Facebook photos are just me fat. So I was 18 stone 4 pounds. I don't know what that is in pounds, but it's heavy for a 6 foot guy. And I basically I had a physical job, working in a supermarket, as I said. Then I went to being a designer, and I ate terribly. This was when I was 18. I never learned how to eat properly. Went to a sit down job, put loads of weight on very quickly. I'd never been into exercise or anything like that. I wasn't a physical kid. And then I got on the scales one day. I was 18 stone 4, massively overweight. And I just like, I need to change this. I need to do something about it. I need to, this is it. This is the cutoff point. I don't get a pound heavier at this point. I'm done. And I started running. So I started running at first, couldn't even run half a mile, started running, lost a load of weight running. And then you kind of get into that point where you've lost loads of weight and you kind of skinny fat and there's nothing to you. You can run for like 4 days, but you couldn't lift a twig up if you wanted to. So I started lifting weights around that time after being introduced to it by a couple of people. And then I've pretty much done it 3 or 4 times a week for 7 years now, constantly. Yeah, I just love it. I pretty much do compound lifts and nothing else, and that's pretty much all I've done for all that time. Lifted weights, and I started doing jiu-jitsu, and I've got a Peloton now as well. So lift weights. I like walks, like going for walks. Lift weights, walk, jiu-jitsu when I can, and biking. That's it.
Does that impact your business and your creativity?
I don't. I. It's hard to remember now. It's
Yeah.
because I think because I was young when I was kind of overweight. It didn't affect my energy that much. I don't think. And because it took me quite a while, it maybe took me a year or two to kind of get fit as such. You can't remember the time when you weren't like that. But now I've got energy all the time. I've never not got energy. Um, so it's hard to even imagine being like that. It's hard for me to remember if I was ever like that. But now, yeah, most days, like I say, I work 4 or 5 hours on the business, but then I'm sat recording podcasts or doing other stuff, and I never run out of energy. So it obviously works. Does it impact my creativity? I don't know. Again, it's hard to say. I exercise every day, so I don't know. Be interesting to try, I guess.
You have to eat a couple of boxes of crunchy bars for the next few days and see how tired it makes you. And then I want you to tell me how great they tasted, and I'll live through you. But
Yeah.
I would suspect that it does, it has been 7 years for you, but I'm betting it's affecting your clarity and your energy. And that's a really good thing. That'll serve you well as you age too, if you keep
Well,
doing that.
I tend to on a morning I either walk, go to work and do something. Then I usually lift weights at dinner time. So I have like a hard break in the middle of the day where after a couple of hours of work, lift weights or go for a walk if I haven't got time to lift weights. Then a few more hours of work, then a walk, then a few more hours of work, and then something else. So there's always like an energy lifting activity somewhere in between. It definitely gives you energy to move on to the next thing. I have this kind of thing that I do, particularly Monday to Friday, where I never stop. And what I mean by that is that I never stop forward motion. So I'll do a few hours of work, exercise, a few hours of work, exercise, a few hours of work, exercise until I go to bed, to not give me the chance to just go, oh, and then that's it. As soon as I've done that and I've put Netflix on, I'm gone. So so I during the week when I've got a kind of a lot of bits and bobs and things to do like that, I don't tend to stop. I just keep going to give myself more energy. I was on a podcast the other week with Paul Lacrone, and he spoke about it as being what you do is you only do activities that give you energy. Um, and I'd agree with that. I only focus on doing things that give me energy, particularly during the week, not activities that take the energy away. I love playing video games and I love watching movies and things like that, but I specifically don't do them during the week because I know I couldn't trust myself to just do them in moderation because they take your energy away, don't they?
Yeah.
They maybe work for your brain, but they take your productive energy away, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why I have no games on my phone because they're time suckers too. Yeah. So I usually ask my guests about their income streams. Like, is it pretty much uh, just through the design firm, or like I know you have written books, multiple books,
Books.
and are those physical books or are they digital?
The digital at the minute, I keep meaning to make them into real books, but I never get around to it.
Yeah. Well, that's the magic though too of digital media, right? Is you can write something and get it out. You don't have that gatekeeper of the physical publishing
Mm.
standing in your way. Um, so yeah, what else is it that you earn from?
Well, it wasn't until coronavirus hit last year, March 16th or 18th, 2020, that I actually started exploring other income streams. So previous to that, 15 years, it's all been from the design firm, not a penny from anywhere else. And that all hit, we us just like everybody else started doing worst case scenario spreadsheets. This is what will happen if we lose all our clients. This is what happens if we lose 25%. And that really scared me. And I realized then at that point that I needed to diversify this. And I should have done it a long time ago. But that was the point. That was the hard point where I was going to start looking at diversifying. So through 2020, I wrote a couple of books. So I wrote one book that I'd written a long time ago, but never well, I won't say published, never put online to sell because it is only an ebook. I didn't publish it specifically. So I finally started selling that book at the same time as building an audience on Twitter, with the view to sell more digital products in the future. So in 2020, I started building an audience. I used Gumroad specifically to sell digital products. So I sold uh, two books, a design course, and then a community which I've called Daily Visual, which is a community where we all make visuals every day. Quite obvious. Um, so that was last year, and so the actual money, I can tell you exact figures. So I went from zero to two. I think it ended up being $2,000 ish in 2020. So that was the first time I'd made side income as such. And it felt amazing. Even though we sell projects way bigger than $2,000. Most projects are nowhere near that small. Uh, just making those little bits of money, it just feels magical somehow when you just sat. You are sat on a night watching Netflix and you get a notification you've made $5. You're like, this is way easier. So that was
Truly
the
passive income.
yeah, purely to some extent passive income. I have a bit of a hang up with that word because obviously I have to maintain the Twitter audience as such. I have to keep feeding the beast, so to speak. But yeah, I have written the thing once and you continue to make money. So yeah,
Yeah, the
I've started.
marketing and the sell. I guess the marketing and the selling isn't passive at all, is it?
No, it isn't. So that was the first time I started experimenting with it, and it was amazing. So that's a bigger concern for me now in 2021. So I am working on a fully fledged design course right now, and the next thing that's coming out is actually a full book, which will be going to real print sometime in 2021, called The Magic Visual, which is all about how to make visuals that get noticed on social media. Because another thing I did throughout 2020 was build another Twitter account, which is visuals only, from zero to nearly 3,000 followers. So the book is about how to make visuals that get noticed, basically. It's called The Magic Visual. And that's the next thing I'm working on. So now I've always got a project that I'm working on behind the scenes, which isn't the day job. Hopefully, the split. So I'd say I made $2,000. The split at the minute is like 1% to 99% or something. But hopefully, the split will become a bit bigger in 2021.
Yeah, that'll be really good for the book that's actually going to become a physical product. Do you have a publisher that is publishing that, or is yourself publishing it? And
Yeah,
then Who's editing? Are you editing it, or are you hiring an editor? How's that whole thing working?
I'm just doing it all myself
Yeah.
again.
I love that. I love that. Do you know where to put commas and apostrophes? I struggle with that.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
I'm okay at that. Yeah, I think I did a pretty good job editing the first one.
Okay.
I'm pretty confident in it. I know some friends who've released books and they've used a publisher. I know some friends who've self-published books, both with equal success.
Yeah.
I really don't think it makes much of a difference these days, to be honest. If you've got the patience to edit your own book, I think it's possible if you've got the right set of skills. Um, and at the minute, I still feel like this will kind of be the third sort of book that I've written. I still don't feel like a writer or whatever. So I don't feel like maybe if I ever really started stepping out and thought, right, I'm going to write a real book this time, maybe I'd get a publisher to help me then. But at the minute, they're still very much digital products rather than books. You know what I mean? It's just a
Well, and
product.
doesn't that sum up the beauty of being a creator? Is you go, look, I'm going to communicate, and the important thing is that what I put together communicates what it is that I'm desiring to share with the world, and you can just do it. You can just go ahead and do it. And if somebody looks and they say, uh, these apostrophes aren't correct, or this is wrong, or the predicate, or what, they're not your audience,
Yeah.
right? And then you can move on with it. And I have right now decided if I'm ever in question about a comma, I'm just putting two commas next to each other from now on. It'll make it really obvious that it's a mistake.
Yeah, I that's the bit that I really like about it, that I get to choose to make it myself, and I'm not ready yet to take all that responsibility away. I still think, I've always got this curiosity going on. I'm still very much at that stage where I still want to learn the whole process. I still want to understand how it all works. I wouldn't want to pass it off to a publisher at the minute and still not understand, for example, what they're really doing when they're putting it on Amazon, for example. I still want to understand that stuff. So I don't get my pants pulled down if I ever did decide to farm it out to a publisher or whatever. It's not that hard to do these days anyway. Somebody showed me how KDP, which is Amazon's self-publishing thing, how it works the other day. It took him about 10 minutes. It's not complicated. So
That's fantastic.
I think really the only thing that publishers still do, and I was shocked when I found this out. I only found this out recently. I think one of the things that publishers still only really do is buy your own books so you get onto bestseller lists. And maybe somebody listening with a bit more experience about publishers know that they do more than that. But it seems like all publishers do really is to just buy your books to get you onto a bestseller list. So I don't know,
I
especially in
don't
the
know.
kind of weird niches that we work in, right?
Yeah.
We're talking 1,000 true fans here. This isn't anything that you or I would ever produce. Isn't a mass market thing. It's never really going to be a bestseller. So
Right.
there isn't really that much of a need to involve somebody like a publisher. They wouldn't even pay attention for a start. The majority of them.
Right. So hey, as we're coming to the end here, I'm wondering, do you have any advice for the creative out there who who maybe they don't think they're creative, right? They don't draw, they don't paint, they don't play an instrument, and yet just like you said, they're falling in love with some particular creative uh, thing out there, just like you said with the CDs, where you'd open them up and as you're looking over the images and how everything's laid out, like there was something that was calling to you, not to be too romantic about it, but yes, there's something that's screaming out to your heart, that's like, this is so cool, I would love to do this, but they don't know maybe where to start, and maybe there's some fears in there. What advice might you have for someone like that?
I'd encourage them to start. And I know that seems like a really crappy answer, but the starting something has never been easier right now. Starting a Twitter account or starting an Instagram account, starting a blog, starting a website, whatever. If there's any kind of thing that you want to do or try, you know, making a blog, or writing a book, or making images, or whatever it is you want. It's never ever been easier to just make it and put it online and potentially start building an audience from it. But what it really does, giving you publishing it online, it gives you confidence that you can do it, that you deserve to do it. And I think publishing online's the important part. Starting and publishing, starting and publishing, even whether you feel like it's rubbish or not, because it will be rubbish. It'll be rubbish for a long time. Um, so yeah, I'd encourage people to start. And the other part of that, what that really does, is the thing that I got wrong for such a long amount of time, is it starts to promote you. So you get into the habit of promotion, and it's the kind of the dirty word for a lot of creatives. We don't like promoting ourselves. We don't like following the tactics that other people tell us to follow. But really, promoting yourself is the thing that's going to get you noticed by people who are outside of your normal circle of influence. That's how we found each other. You've found me on Twitter purely through my acts of promotion, which I did by publishing online, which is the other thing I mentioned. So by publishing online, it gives you an option to promote yourself in a very natural way that doesn't feel fake in any way. So yeah, one thing really, start and publish, which will lead to promotion.
Very good. Is Twitter, by the way, is that your singular focus on social media? Are you in Instagram, Facebook?
I've got an Instagram account, but I don't really use it for promotion. So in terms of promotion, yes, Twitter is my singular focus. I have a Facebook and Instagram, a Twitter, and a LinkedIn account, but it's only Twitter that I use because it's the only one that feels right for me as a creative, actually.
I was going to ask you why Twitter. Why does it feel right?
So I publish every day on Instagram. So the account I was talking about, the visual account that I've got, um, it's called Unobvious, and it's just like little doodles that I make, that usually people's quotations, but sometimes it's ideas and things like that. Just little black and white illustrations. Um, the Instagram account is at about 500 followers, and the Twitter account is at 3,000. And I often asked myself why this was the way. Was it because I don't focus on Instagram? And why does it do better on Twitter? And I think really it's because Twitter, it resonates more with people, because Twitter's an ideas place. People share ideas on Twitter, and people come together on Twitter to discuss ideas and to promote ideas and all this kind of thing. Instagram, people tend to just go there to consume visuals or consume videos or consume.
Yeah.
Yeah, people aren't thinking when they're on Twitter, on Instagram, I'm sorry. Whereas on Twitter, people are there to think and they are sharing their ideas. I think that's the big differentiator. So that's why I stuck with Twitter, um, because it feels like a more natural medium to get my ideas out, for people to actually read them and listen, and for people to respond, and for me to get something from the interaction as well, connections, and just like a nice feeling. Whereas Instagram just feels more like a consumption engine. So yeah, and I haven't been proved wrong yet after being on it for a year. Well, I've been on it for 12 odd years, but using it seriously for a year. Uh, it still feels like that now. It's nice to be part of Twitter. It isn't nice to be part of Instagram. But I know for some creatives they prefer Instagram. But I don't know. It just doesn't work for me. I've made much better connections on Twitter, global connections, than I ever have on Instagram.
Well, fair enough. So tell me, where can people find you, Craig, if they want to get in touch?
Just go to getdoingthings.com. On that, you'll see links to all the weird and wonderful stuff I'm doing on the homepage. Simple as that. Just go there.
All right, fantastic. I'll include that in the show notes so you can find the link for Craig Burgess. Craig, thank you for being my guest, man. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, no worries. Appreciate you. It's been good fun.
Hey, Craig, thank you once again for being my guest. You shared such incredible information with us today, and I had a real blast just kind of unpacking how you got to where you got, and I love the fact that there's a fearlessness to you. It seems like that has been a theme and a thread through so many of my interviews with creatives, is that there is a fearlessness of moving forward, not being afraid, as you said, to look rubbish, not to be afraid to look the fool, right? While you're working it out, because we're all working it out and we're all trying to figure it out and we're all going to make errors and mistakes. And if we're going to let those errors and mistakes become roadblocks, as opposed to, I heard somebody refer to failures as hurdles. And I don't think that they actually said, like, hey, instead of failure, think of them as hurdles. But I love that. I love to think of potential roadblocks as hurdles, and they're things to go over and grow over, right? Really, really good stuff. Um, I like that you have a hunger to grow and to create and to learn. And you do all this by taking action. I think too many times, speaking for myself, I can live in my head and just think about things and think about scenarios. And we're really not going to get further ahead unless we take action. And, there's a time to sit and think. You don't always just want to rush into something. But I think too many times we can just think and think and think and think and think. And we're not going to learn what we could learn, or get to the place we want to get to if we don't take action. I love the term full stack creative. I talked a little bit in the show about talent stacking that I'd first heard from Scott Adams, but very similar titles, right? That express you have a broad bandwidth of skills, and you're probably going to be much better at some than you are the others, but you're a one-stop shop. You become a place where people can come to lean on you and rely on you for whatever it is their business needs. I'm not saying to spread yourself too thin. I'm not saying to do stuff that you don't think you could be good at, or that you don't think would be beneficial for you to do. We all have our limitations, but full stack creative, man, that's pretty cool. I really, really like it. And, back to taking action on things, I also love that, you're on Twitter every day, all day. I mean, I see you on there. I know you're getting work done. I know you're doing your thing, and that you have a system set up for how you uh, post on Twitter. But that's how I found you. I found you on Twitter because there you are. You're a designer. I followed you, and I can't remember exactly how I found you, but you put so much out there that I had to pay attention. Then I reached out to you, and you know that's pretty cool. It was beneficial for me for sure, and I was very glad to meet you, and looking forward to getting to know you better. Um, we talked a little bit about growing, and when you start out, how people can look at you, and especially the people who know you, and they know what you're not, or maybe what you've been since you're little. And it's a good idea to start to maybe turn the volume down on them just a little bit, and pick up some new friends and peers along the way who know what you're trying to do and can appreciate better what you're trying to do, and pour into you in an encouraging way, and even a critical way, right? To bring you along. And I like that you look at this as a long game. You know, I think too many times we stop short, and we got to make a commitment and know, okay, I'm not going to be as good or even as comfortable as I will be in what it is I'm doing 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So if you begin with the long game in mind, a long road, maybe even thinking about your older self and where you want to end up at, that's really, really important. And I think a helpful and mature way to start framing things and what it is you do. And then, lastly, I love that you're, back to Twitter, you're promoting yourself on Twitter and the benefits of Twitter, and you're going after it hard. So, congrats on all your success, and I wish you so much more. You can contact Craig by looking at the link in the show notes. And I hope that you have a fantastic week. I hope that you are getting busy about the business of taking your creative skills, your creative desires, and marrying them to business somehow so that you can make a living at what it is that you do as a creative. And if you're already in the business, I hope that you're taking that next step or you're getting that next client or you're working on that area of your creative skill set that is just going to help blast you out of the stratosphere. So, on behalf of the Breakthrough Creative, I'm your host, John. I hope you have a great week. I know I said it twice, but I really, really mean it. See ya. Cheers.